Everything is a Mindset is a channel dedicated to guiding you on a journey of self-improvement, offering insights into education, personal development, the ever-evolving world of digital marketing, and artificial intelligence. Whether you're a lifelong learner, a curious mind, or looking to adapt to a rapidly changing world, you're in the right place. Subscribe and allow notifications to get more content like this.
Ever feel like you're doing all the right things? Like setting goals and working hard, but still not hitting that inspired level of success?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to deep dive into why that might be,
Okay.
using Simon Sinek's Start With Why as our guide.
Right.
You might have heard of this book.
Yeah.
It's all about how understanding your WIY, your core purpose, is the secret sauce to really making things happen.
It's fascinating how many people and companies just get so caught up in the what and the how of things without ever pausing to ask, but why am I doing this in the first place?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where Sinek's Golden Circle comes in, which we'll unpack in a bit.
Right.
But first, let me set the stage with a story Sinek uses about this guy named Samuel Langley.
Okay.
Now, Langley was basically set up for success.
Hmm.
Money connections, top talent working for him.
Wow.
His goal, to build the first airplane.
Ambitious.
Seems like a slam dunk, right?
Yeah, you would think so.
So what's interesting is that Langley was motivated by fame and fortune. He wanted the glory of being first, the recognition, the riches that would come with it.
Typical.
But at the same time, two brothers, Wilbur and Orville Wright, were also working on a flying machine,
Okay.
fueled by something completely different.
I'm intrigued.
They were genuinely passionate about the idea of flight itself.
Okay.
It wasn't about the accolades for them. It was about the challenge, the dream.
Yeah.
And guess who ended up making history?
The Wright brothers.
The Wright brothers, of course.
Of course. Yeah.
It really drives home Sinek's point that a powerful WHY can fuel incredible perseverance and even help you overcome seemingly impossible obstacles.
It's true.
It's so powerful.
Yeah, and this ties into what Sinek calls the golden circle.
Okay.
Basically, this idea that most people communicate from the outside in, what they do, how they do it,
Okay.
and maybe then why.
Yeah.
But truly inspiring leaders and organizations flip that script.
Flip the script.
They start with WHY, then explain how they make it happen, and finally, what it is they actually do.
So you're saying it's more compelling to connect on a values level first,
Right.
then get into the nitty-gritty details.
Exactly.
Okay, think about Apple.
Okay.
Their WHY isn't just making computers and phones.
No.
It's about challenging the status quo,
Mm-hmm.
empowering individuals through technology
Right.
that different ethos resonates deeply with their customers.
Right.
It's not just a transaction, it's buying into a belief system.
It is.
I get that, but isn't that a bit idealistic?
Oh, wow.
I mean, what about practical considerations like price and features?
Mm-hmm.
Surely those matter too, right?
Of course. Of course.
Yeah.
But Sinek isn't saying those things are irrelevant.
Okay.
His point is that people often justify their decisions
Right.
based on those practicalities after the fact.
Hmm.
We might tell ourselves we bought that phone because of the camera specs,
Yeah.
but subconsciously it was Apple's WHY that drew us in the first place.
Okay, that's starting to click for me.
Good.
So are you saying that most companies are going about this all wrong? Well, that instead of inspiring us, they're just manipulating us into buying stuff.
Sinek argues that many companies rely on what he calls manipulations to drive sales.
Okay.
Things like limited time offers,
Right.
peer pressure tactics,
Yeah.
even playing on our fears.
Oh, wow.
These can work in the short term, but they don't build lasting loyalty or a sense of genuine connection with the brand.
So it's like that buy now before it's gone urgency that makes you around. Impulse purchase something you don't really need.
Yeah,
Or those ads that make you feel like you're missing out if you don't have the latest gadget.
precisely.
Okay.
Whereas brands that start with WHY create a different kind of relationship with their customers.
Okay.
Think about Harley Davidson.
Okay.
People don't just buy a motorcycle, they buy into a whole lifestyle, a sense of freedom and rebellion. Or Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Okay.
His WHY wasn't just about ending segregation, it was about a much larger vision of equality and justice.
Powerful examples.
Right.
So how does this WHY thing actually play out in our brains?
Well,
Is there science behind all of this?
there is.
Okay.
Neuroscience shows that our decisions are largely driven by emotions, not logic.
Interesting.
The limbic brain, which processes feelings and emotions, is the real decision maker,
Okay.
not the neocortex responsible for rational thought.
Wait, so you're saying all those spreadsheets I make to justify buying something are basically just me trying to rationalize a decision I've already made emotionally.
Often, yes.
Oh, wow.
And this is where it gets really interesting for businesses.
Okay.
It means connecting with people on an emotional level through your WHY is crucial if you want them to truly buy in.
Okay. This is blowing my mind a little.
It is fascinating stuff.
So we've established that knowing your WHY is important.
Mm-hmm.
But how do we actually figure out what ours is?
Well, it starts with introspection.
Uh,
Ask yourself, what truly inspires me? What do I deeply believe in? What kind of impact do I want to have on the world?
So it's not just about what you're good at,
Right.
but what gets you out of bed in the morning.
Exactly.
I like that.
Your WHY is your unique contribution, your driving force.
Okay.
Once you've identified it, the next step is communicating it authentically and consistently in everything you do.
Okay.
This is how you build trust and attract people who resonate with your purpose.
All right. I'm ready to find my WHY.
Great.
But how do I make sure it reaches the right people? It's a noisy world out there.
That's where the concept of building a megaphone comes in.
Okay.
Think of a company or even your personal brand as a tool for amplifying your WHY,
Right.
for reaching a wider audience.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get into that, let's talk about how ideas spread.
Okay.
Sinek introduces this idea called the law of diffusion, which explains how new ideas and technologies are adopted by a population.
So last time we were talking about the law of diffusion, that
Yeah.
idea that new ideas spread through a population in a predictable way.
Right.
I remember Sinek using TiVo as an example of a company that had a great product,
Uh-huh.
but struggled because they didn't nail their WHY.
Yeah.
Can you refresh my memory on that?
Right. So TiVo is this revolutionary product,
Right.
the first DVR,
Right.
and it was technically superior to anything else in the market at the time.
Wow.
But they focused so much on the what,
Mm-hmm.
all the cool features it had,
Yeah.
that they failed to connect with people emotionally.
Yeah.
They didn't really convey WHY anyone should care about having a DVR in the first place.
So even if you have an amazing product,
Yeah.
if people don't understand WHY it matters to them,
Yeah.
it's going to be tough to get traction.
Exactly. It's not enough to just be good.
Yeah.
You have to make people believe in what you believe.
I see.
And that brings us back to building that megaphone for your WHY.
Okay.
Sinek talks about how a company or a movement is essentially a platform for amplifying your message
Yeah.
for reaching a wider audience.
But how do you actually build that megaphone?
Well,
It sounds pretty abstract.
it starts with partnerships.
Okay.
Sinek talks about the importance of having a balance
Right.
between WHY types, those visionary leaders with a clear sense of purpose,
Yeah.
and HW types. Okay.
The people who are great at getting things done, at bringing that vision to life.
Right.
He uses examples like Bill Gates and Steve Wozniak at Microsoft,
Okay, familiar with that one.
Walt and Roy Disney,
Yeah.
even Herb Kelleher and Colleen Barrett at Southwest Airlines.
So it's about finding people who complement your strengths and who share your passion.
Exactly.
But what about those times when you start to lose sight of your WHY?
Mm-hmm.
It happens, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, life gets busy. You get caught up in the day-to-day grind.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
Both to individuals and to organizations.
Right.
Sinek actually tells this really interesting story
Okay.
about a gathering of successful entrepreneurs
Mm-hmm.
who all realized they had achieved their goals but felt utterly unfulfilled.
Wow.
They'd climbed the ladder of success, only to discover it was leaning against the wrong wall.
That's a powerful image.
It is.
So how do you avoid that?
Mm.
How do you stay connected to your WHY as you move through life and your career? Well, Sinek suggests that one way is to have a clear articulation of your WHY.
Yeah.
Not just in your head,
Mm-hmm.
but written down, something you can refer back to.
Right.
Almost like a physical reminder.
Yeah.
This acts as a compass,
Okay.
especially when you're facing tough decisions or feeling lost.
Right.
It's also a great way to attract people who share your values,
Yeah.
kind of like a beacon.
But isn't there a danger of becoming too fixated on your WHY?
Mm-hmm.
What about being flexible and adapting to change?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
It's not about being rigid or inflexible.
Oh,
Your
no.
WHY can evolve over time,
Okay.
but it should always be the guiding principle behind your actions.
Right.
Sinek uses this analogy called the celery test to illustrate this
A
point.
celery test.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Imagine you're at a dinner party
Okay.
and people are coming up to you
Hmm.
with all sorts of business advice.
Okay.
One person says, you need to be using M&Ms. If you're not incorporating M&Ms into your business, you're missing out.
Right.
Someone else suggests rice milk because it's the trendy new thing.
Right.
And then another person says, you absolutely need celery. It's healthy, affordable, versatile.
Okay, I'm seeing where this is going.
Yeah.
Which one would you actually consider?
Right. You'd only consider the celery if it actually aligned with your dietary preferences and lifestyle, right?
Yep.
You wouldn't just jump on the M&M bandwagon because someone said it was a good idea.
So the celery test is about being selective,
Yes.
about making sure the things you bring into your life, the projects you take, and the partnerships you form
Yeah.
are a good fit for your WHY, not just chasing trends or trying to please everyone.
Exactly. It's about having the confidence to say no to things that don't align with your core values,
hmm
even if they seem like great opportunities on the surface.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's like a gut check for decision making.
Uh-huh.
If it doesn't pass the celery test, it's probably not a good fit for you, no matter how popular or trendy it might be.
Right.
But doesn't that make success more challenging to achieve?
Wait.
I mean, if you're always saying no to things.
It might seem that way, but remember, true success isn't just about achieving external goals.
Right.
It's about feeling fulfilled, about knowing that you're living a life that's true to yourself.
You're right. There's that idea of the split,
Yeah.
where you might be successful on paper, but feel like you've lost something along the way.
Yeah, that internal disconnect.
And that brings up an interesting point. How do you make sure your WHY remains authentic? How do you prevent it from becoming just another marketing gimmick or a catchy slogan?
Authenticity comes from aligning your actions with your words.
Okay.
It's about walking the talk.
Right.
If you say your company values sustainability, but your practices don't reflect, that people will see through it.
So it's not just about what you say your WHY is, but how you live it out every day.
Exactly.
Are there any examples that come to mind? Companies that have managed to stay true to their WHY, even as they've grown and evolved?
Yeah. Well, I think Patagonia is a great example.
Patagonia.
They've been incredibly consistent in their commitment to environmentalism, even when it's been difficult or unpopular.
Yeah.
Their WHY is so deeply ingrained in their company culture that it guides every decision they make.
They've definitely built a loyal following because of it.
They have.
But Patagonia is a pretty unique company.
Yeah.
Can any business apply these principles, even those that aren't focused on a social cause?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Remember, your WHY doesn't have to be some grand world-changing mission.
Right.
It's about what drives you, what makes your work meaningful.
Yeah.
It could be about creating products that solve a specific problem, providing exceptional customer service, or fostering a culture of innovation.
Okay, so how do you go about actually communicating your WHY to the world? It's one thing to know it in your heart, but how do you articulate it in a way that resonates with others?
Sinek talks about the importance of speaking to the limbic brain, that emotional center we talked about earlier. He actually uses a dating analogy, which I think is pretty clever.
Okay.
Imagine you're on a date
Okay.
and you spend the whole time talking about your accomplishments, your job title, all the things you do.
It's like that scene in The Office where Michael Scott tries to impress a date by listing all his Dundie awards. Not exactly a recipe for romance.
Now imagine instead you spend that date talking about your passions, your dreams, what gets you fired up.
Okay.
That's speaking to the WHY.
Okay.
You're sharing your values, inviting the other person to connect with you on a deeper level.
So it's not about bragging or listing your credentials. It's about being vulnerable, letting your true self shine through.
And that's what builds trust and creates lasting connections.
I see.
It's how you build a tribe of people who believe in what you believe.
Right.
Sinek also uses the example of being stranded on a deserted island with a group of strangers.
Okay. Interesting.
One person might step up and say, I will lead.
Yeah.
But true leadership is about more than just declaring yourself the leader.
It's about inspiring people to want to follow you.
Right. If that self-proclaimed leader starts barking orders and demanding obedience, they're unlikely to inspire trust or cooperation.
Yeah. Makes sense.
But if they start by asking questions, listening to the group's concerns, and working with the group to come up with a plan.
That's the kind of leadership that gets results.
Exactly.
It's about connecting with people on a human level, understanding their motivations, and working towards a shared goal.
And that's where clarity of WHY comes in.
Okay.
When people understand the purpose behind the actions, they're more likely to buy in and contribute their best efforts. They become part of something bigger than themselves.
This is all starting to make sense, but I still have one nagging question.
Okay, what's that?
What about competition? I mean, in the real world, you have to be focused on winning, on beating the competition, right?
Sinek would argue that focusing too much on the competition can actually be detrimental.
Silly.
It takes your attention away from your WHY and puts you in a reactive mode instead of a creative one.
So instead of trying to outdo everyone else, you should be focused on staying true to your own vision.
Exactly.
But how do you do that in a cutthroat business environment?
It's about differentiation.
Okay?
When you start with WHY, you automatically set yourself apart from the competition.
Hmm.
You're no longer just selling a product or a service. You're selling a belief system, a way of life.
It's like those companies that try to be everything to everyone.
Yeah,
They end up with a diluted message that doesn't really resonate with anyone.
exactly. It's like that scene from The Matrix where Agent Smith talks about humans being like a virus.
Whoa, where are you going with this?
It's a metaphor for how we often operate in business.
Okay.
We spread ourselves too thin, grasping at every opportunity without a clear sense of purpose or direction.
Right.
We become like a virus, consuming resources and leaving a trail of destruction in our wake.
Okay, I see your point.
Yeah.
We need to be mindful of our impacts
Yes.
and ensure that our actions are aligned with our WHY.
It's about building something sustainable, something that benefits not just ourselves, but the world around us.
I like that.
And that brings us to an important distinction:
Okay.
achieving success versus feeling successful.
So we've been talking about how crucial it is to connect with your WHY, both personally and as a company. But sometimes it feels like success is measured by these external markers,
Yeah.
money, fame, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So where does that fit in?
It's tricky, right? Because those things can be byproducts of staying true to your WHY,
Okay.
but they can't be the WHY itself.
Right.
Sinek talks about this idea of achievement versus fulfillment.
Okay.
You can achieve all those outward markers of success, but still feel empty inside if it's not aligned with your purpose.
It's like that saying, be careful what you wish for. You might just get it.
Right.
Only it's be careful what you achieve. You might not feel successful.
Exactly. That reminds me of another point Sinek makes about how losing sight of WHY can actually lead to a decline for companies. He uses examples like Walmart and Starbucks, both hugely successful. But both face challenges when their growth outpaced their connection to their original WHY.
So even if you start out strong, if you don't constantly check back in with that WHY, you can kind of veer off course.
It's so easy to get caught up in the expanding, launching new products, chasing the next big thing,
Yeah.
that you forget about the WHY that made you special in the first place.
It's like, why are we doing all this again? What problem are we even solving anymore?
Sinek argues that this is when companies start to rely on those manipulative tactics we talked about earlier: price wars, flashy advertising trying to be everything to everyone.
Right.
They lose their authenticity, their connection with their core customers, and ultimately their sense of purpose.
This is kind of depressing. Are there any companies that manage to navigate this successfully?
Of course, think about Apple again.
Yeah.
They've consistently stayed true to their think different ethos, even as they've become a global behemoth. They haven't been afraid to take risks, to challenge conventions, to stay ahead of the curve, all while staying connected to their core WHY of empowering individuals through technology.
That's interesting. They really haven't wavered from that, even when they face criticism or had product flops.
Right.
It's like they have this internal compass that keeps them on track.
It's not just about having a charismatic leader like Steve Jobs either. It's about building a culture where the WHY is woven into every aspect of the organization, from how they hire and train employees, to how they design their products, to how they interact with their customers.
So it's about more than just a mission statement hanging on the wall. It's about living and breathing it every day. I'm curious, are there any examples of WHY-driven companies that maybe aren't as well known but are doing really cool things?
There are so many. One that comes to mind is a company called Thomas Shoes.
Thomas Shoes, yeah.
Their WHY is built right into their business model. For every pair of shoes they sell, they donate a pair to a child in need. They've expanded beyond shoes now, but that core WHY of using business as a force for good remains at the heart of everything they do.
I love that. So it's not just about profits, it's about making a positive impact on the world.
And that's something that really resonates with consumers, especially younger generations, who are increasingly looking for brands that align with their values.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. What are some key takeaways that listeners can walk away with? How can they actually apply this start with WHY thing to their own lives?
Well, first and foremost, take some time to really reflect on your own WHY. What are you passionate about? What are your core values? What kind of impact do you want to make on the world?
And it doesn't have to be something huge,
Yeah.
right? It could be as simple as wanting to make people laugh or to create beautiful things or to solve a particular problem that you're passionate about.
Exactly. Once you have a clear understanding of your WHY, start using it as a filter for your decisions. What jobs should you apply for? What projects should you take on? Who should you collaborate with?
And don't be afraid to say NO to things that don't align with your WHY, even if they seem like great opportunities on paper.
Remember, your time and energy are precious resources. Invest them wisely in things that fuel your purpose, not things that drain you.
This has been such an insightful deep dive into, start with, why it's amazing how such a simple concept can have such a profound impact on our lives and our work.
It's a reminder that success isn't just about achieving goals. It's about living a life that's meaningful and fulfilling.
So to all our listeners out there, go find your WHY, articulate it, live it, and watch amazing things happen.
And if you're looking for more inspiration, we highly recommend checking out Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why It's a Game Changer.
That's it for this deep dive. Until next time,
Yeah.
keep asking WHY and keep pushing for a world that's a little bit more inspired.
If you like this video, please show it with a like, share, or comment. Your opinion is important. Don't forget to subscribe and allow notifications to get more content like this. See you on the next video.